There's just no separate person there at all doing anything. The universe is expressing itself. And if there's any belief that you're separate and you have to fix yourself, it's a never-ending battle. There's something wrong with me. There is no you who's doing anything. The universe created this earth. The universe created our solar system. And the universe will break it down and then create a new life forms. And this goes not just the universe. This doesn't just apply to the Milky Way galaxy. So we can look at that sort of on a macro, absolute level. Everything in the universe is an expression of the one mysterious source, or God. Everything, not just the galaxies, but every thought that you have. Every thought that arises in your experience. So we go to the most micro level in the human experience would be one little thought, one little emotion. Every little thought, every little feeling, every sense of joy, every sense of anger, every thought, every positive thought, so-called, every negative thought, is not your doing. The universe, the universal source that creates the earth, creates every thought, every action, every anger, every cancer cell, every healthy cell. There's nothing for you to do. And it really doesn't matter from an individual biological organism. What difference does it make? What happens to this one? The universe is expressing itself and will continue to express itself in an infinite variety of forms. So this is knowing yourself as the universal life. It's knowing yourself as the absolute, as God. You can't be separate from that.
So how often do you have to remind yourself?
How often do you have to remind yourself that the boiling pot of water is boiling? How often do you have to remind yourself not to stick your hand in it? It hurts. It hurts being a separate person. It hurts being an individual. That's the pain of it's the fall from grace. So how often do you have to remind yourself, don't step on a rusty nail. Don't stick your hand in boiling water. How often?
And you do it like a...
I don't do it. It hurts.
Well, but then you remind yourself of your...
It just happens. I don't even any if I were to come up with a practice or a technique, see, it wouldn't be me doing that.
Mm-hmm.
A technique expresses itself. The universal life, God, makes a technique happen, a coping technique, to avoid, because in the human experience, suffering happens. When we believe we're separate, we beat up on ourselves. What's wrong with me? I should not have done this. I should have done this. And I'm worried about what happens to my physical body. And so these thoughts that are all revolve around the belief in that I am a separate controlling entity, a separate ego, is the root of suffering. That happens in the human experience, and then we look for a way out. And then, so some strategies or techniques may come up to cope with the pain of being separate. And one of them may be like a full stop sort of approach. When you find yourself sort of being pulled into a story, you notice it's uncomfortable. You notice the churning stomach, the tightness in the chest. It's uncomfortable. So a strategy may be employed, like just say, anytime there's pain, say to yourself, stop, just stop. Yeah. But that would not be you doing that. That would be the universe. You're not doing anything, and I'm not doing anything. You may find that strategies or techniques like that happen. The strategy would be every time you stick your hand in the hot water, the moment you feel it burning, pull your hand out. It may be something that simple. So every time you feel yourself being pulled into a story, you notice your stomach tightening, like, it feels uncomfortable. So you may employ some strategy of, I'm not going there, stop it. and back to your present moment senses.
Is that just a different technique, and he has a different way of coping?
Yeah, see, these ways of coping is when you
They can be contradictory, because if you use one, it's obviously the other one isn't. It's different. I mean, you gotta give it he said you give it a chance to run through, or something like that.
Yeah, and the different approaches. One is that you notice yourself getting pulled into a story.
Yeah.
You start to get uncomfortable. So one approach, maybe just you say to yourself, anytime I'm just going to say stop, I'm not going down there. I'm going back to the present moment, my senses. Mm-hmm. That's one strategy or technique. An opposite approach is not to do anything. Mm-hmm. Just notice what's happening. Mm-hmm. You notice it's the uncomfortable energy flowing through your body, so you feel it, you notice it.
Yeah, that's the thing. So he also says don't label it. It's an uncomfortable energy. You call it fear, or you call it anger, or something like that. Maybe see it as an uncomfortable energy, or you watch it.
Yeah, what I'm told, you can't run away from it. You can't. There's nothing you can do. Be with it in its center or its core. Imagine you're right there in it.
Yeah, so there's different sort of approaches, techniques, strategies to deal with uncomfortable.
But the main thing is it isn't you; it's the story. The main thing is that whatever it is, whatever you employ, or wherever
they. Ultimately, no strategies or techniques are needed.
Yeah.
When you realize the story that's playing, whatever it is, it does not refer to anyone. It does not refer to you. There is no substantial, separate you. There's no separate entity that the story refers to. So as soon as a story starts playing in your head about, you're not good enough, or you should have done this, why did I do that, the whole story, as soon as that starts, you realize the Carl that the story refers to, the Carl who's not good enough, the Carl who should have done this, the Carl who should not have done, the Carl who might get cancer, the Carl, the central character, the star of the movie, doesn't exist. He's not separate from God. There is nothing can happen to Carl's life because it's not Carl's life, it's universal life. So you realize there is no separation between you and universal life. So what can happen to you? So there's no need for any coping strategy because you're deathless. You are infinite eternal life. It's what we are. We have to be. Because 6 billion years ago, there was no planet Earth. These bodies are made up of the Earth. So these bodies were space particles. And infinite universal life formed the Earth, formed these bodies, and then in 5, 10, 20 billion years, whatever it is, whatever it takes, this Earth will break apart and become, these bodies will die, the Earth will break apart and go back into its elements of space dust. But universal life, did anything happen to universal life, which is what we are? Infinite, eternal, universal life. Does anything happen to that? So this is what I am. I am infinite, universal life. We cannot be separate from that. It's not possible. So nothing can happen to you. Only temporary relative experiences can happen to these bodies. If I hit this knee, it hurts. If I get cancer, that hurts and I die, possibly. Eventually the body dies anyway. But so what from the perspective, if I know that I am universal life, I am God, I'm not separate from God, what difference does it make and what happens to this one of my expressions? This is one of my expressions, universal life. If we're worried about this one, you're going to be in a constant state of worry, really, even when everything is going perfectly, when you're perfectly healthy, because now you have to maintain it, struggle it, fight, stay on the treadmill. It's a never-ending. You cannot win. Because it's going to break down eventually, and it's going to go back to the Earth. The Earth is going to dissipate, break down, and go back to space particles. You can't win. So if you're trying to, employing those strategies and techniques works on a short-term, temporary little basis, but ultimately, you got to realize it doesn't matter what happens to this body. It doesn't matter what happens to Carl. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. You have to completely let go of this separate person called Carl if you want to live in peace. And say, I don't care what happens to Carl. If you care what happens to the separate individual Carl, you're going to suffer. When you realize Carl is universal life, the essence of what you are, then you realize it doesn't matter if I stick my hand in the boiling water. What difference does it make to me? If my hand is burned, if there's pleasure or pain, it's all a temporary appearance in my awareness. And eventually it will change and it goes to the next experience, the next one, the next one, the next one. And the Earth is a temporary appearance. Our galaxy is a temporary appearance. But the essence of what we are is infinite eternal life. We will express in another form, another planet, and another galaxy. Then, what technique do you need to employ? It doesn't matter if you're laughing or crying, if you're happy or sad, if you have cancer or you're running a marathon in perfect health. What difference does it make to you? You're universal life. What strategy do you need to employ? You're done.